Hi, this is Heather Martin. Welcome back. In my last video, I gave you a little overview about my background and my partner's background and how the issue of chronic pain and chronic pain management has become very important in our lives, has impacted us very, very severely. So for that background information, I invite you to watch the previous video. Right now I'm going to talk to you more about what we have been doing since that time, since our backstory. Of course, having seen what we had both seen and personally gone through, being denied treatment through pain management center after pain management center, the kinds of alternatives that are offered for a patient, epidural injections that have no effect on the pain. In many places they wanted to surgically implant a robotic pump inside of his body to dose him with the painkiller medicine rather than just letting him handle the medicine himself, because this is the idea is that adult people are not responsible enough to handle their medication and take it as prescribed, which is just bigotry against pain patients. It's discrimination, and it's treating pain patients as criminals, and we should not tolerate any type of stigmatizing or treating pain patients as criminals. Pain patients have enough to go through every day of their lives dealing with chronic pain. They don't need to be afraid that when they go to the doctor they'll be told to get a terminal illness, or they'll be denied their medication cold turkey and have to go through withdrawals as well as chronic pain. So I want to tell you what we've done. I went on a search to try to find any other activist groups, any organizations that were taking up our cause. And one of the groups I found was the National Pain Patients Coalition, and I joined them on Facebook, and I was contacted by the founder. I contacted him, or somehow that happened. Anyway, he reached out to Martin and I. He is also a doctor who has also been persecuted under these regulations for practicing in a very poor area of the Deep South. And he brought to my attention really a lot of the racism behind these regulations and the war on drugs and its entire conception. In fact, Nixon, one of Nixon's staff people involved in the war on drugs recently came out and said, yes, indeed, it was a race war against black Americans. So that's no secret. Minorities are severely impacted by this. Anyone from the lower socioeconomic bracket in our society is going to be the first affected by this. It reminds me of Nazi Germany, where first they purged the disabled, the infirm, the people from the hospitals, and this is really what's going on right now. So we joined the National Pain Patients Coalition. It's kind of a loose group, but spread out over the nation and open to everyone who is concerned about this issue, to patients, to caregivers, to doctors, to anyone in any field or background who's at all concerned with this issue. So through the National Pain Patients Coalition, by the way, their website is www.painpatientscoalition.com. Again, that's www.painpatientscoalition.com. PAINPATIENTSCOALITION.com. So we learned through this organization about Pain Patients Advocacy Week, which is the last week of the month of April. It was this year, April 23rd through the 30th. And this has actually been established for many years already. You can read about the history of it on that website. So for the Pain Patients Advocacy Week, as per the founder's idea, we generated a series of letters. We wrote to the governors of the states of New York, Montana, and Washington. We also wrote to the senators of those states and the Congress, both the upper and lower house. The Congress, both the upper and lower house of the representatives. We generated over between 20 and 30 letters that we sent out. So far, the majority of those letters have gone unanswered. We had 2 replies from those letters. One was from Senator Patty Murray's office in Washington. Well, first she had sent me a consent form to have them look into our case. Each letter that I wrote described the experiences that we'd had in each of those states and why we wanted the issue of the regulations and the law enforcement in the doctor's offices addressed and sent the other way because of the impact it's having on patients and doctors. So I sent back this consent form with my information on it, and I also received a letter back from Representative Adam Smith in the area of Washington that we had been in the SeaTac area. And the outcome of both the reply from Representative Smith and the investigation through Murray's office was we were put into contact with the Washington State Department of Health. And from there we actually spoke to the Drug Systems Director. His name is Mr. Baumgartner. And I talked to him at length about the situation that we had encountered in Washington. And what he said to me was that those doctors and those pain specialists that we had seen back in 2013 really were misinterpreting the guidelines. Of course, we knew that already because we had read the guidelines ourselves. I have discovered recently, well, a few months ago, that as of April 2015, the Washington State guidelines were updated to include chronic pain patients as well as patients with cancer and AIDS. However, considering the severity of the climate of fear that we saw among the pain management community when we were there, it's a very realistic and serious worry that if we were to go to Washington now, would we receive treatment or would we get the same thing as before, doors closed in our faces and doctors telling us that they were too afraid to prescribe. But at least I have the word of Mr. Baumgartner, and when I talk to any politicians or doctors, and I encourage you all to do the same, record everything, record all of your interactions. I do that now for my own documentary purposes, and because if anything turns out to be false or abusive, I'm going to hold the responsible parties accountable. So Mr. Baumgartner, I asked him who he thought in the state of Washington really did understand the guidelines and was applying them correctly. So he recommended a doctor at the University of Washington, and I am right now working on a letter that I'm going to send to that doctor explaining our situation and our need and our desire for a doctor to continue treatment in the state of Washington. Writing letters was not the only part of our advocacy for Pain Patients Advocacy Week. On April 25th, it was a Monday morning, Martin and I staged a protest rally at the Capitol in Albany, New York, and it was attended by the two of us. We went out there. Since Martin cannot sit or stand for long periods of time, I got a reclining lawn chair. We've been in a process of trying to get him an actual wheelchair for a while, but the doctors had other things on his mind, dealing with being run out of his practice due to regulations and preparing for retirement. But anyway, we staged this rally and we handed out flyers about Pain Patients Advocacy Week. Here's an image of one of those flyers. And we gave red ribbons to people and talked to people about the situation and told them about how the current enforcement and the pressure being put on departments of health and on pain management centers was really victimizing chronic pain patients in a very devastating way. So we did raise awareness. We were visited by a photographer from the Times-Union who came by and took our picture, but didn't really want any more information, as he said, I'm just a photographer. And I don't think that picture ever ran in the paper. I looked for it for a while and didn't see it. And other protest pictures that were later were appearing, but not ours, so they did not give us coverage. That was not the only protest rally that we did for Pain Patients Advocacy Week. I should tell you one thing that did happen during that rally. We met a lady from a methadone clinic. She worked at a methadone clinic, and she came up and talked to us. And we dialogued about the situation from two different aspects of it, and talked about the nature of addiction itself. And she recommended a doctor to us that she thought understood the proper balance between pain management and preventing abuse. So she gave us that doctor's name, and Martin has contacted him and does have an appointment set up for hopefully before his medicine runs out. So that's one prospect that we have. We do not know if this doctor will actually treat Martin or sustain him on that medicine. All I know is that we have an appointment, and we'll see what might come of that. So moving on, our next protest rally we held was on Friday of Pain Patients Advocacy Week, and again it was attended by ourselves. It was on April 29th, and we protested in front of the Columbia Memorial Hospital in Hudson, New York, where Martin had been treated by Dr. Thomas Andreyuk with extensive epidural steroid injections that did nothing for the pain, and this doctor lied to him, saying that he would give pain medicine if the injections did not work. However, as time went on, he only wanted to get more injections and no pain medicine. This time, we were covered by the media. Our local paper, the Register-Star, thought we were worthy of the front page. Let's see. There we are. And there is a link to our story on the webpage of the National Pain Patients Coalition at painpatientscoalition.com, and you could read about our experience in that interview. So we did get local coverage for that, for our efforts. So even though Pain Patients Advocacy Week is over, it is not too late or any reason not to continue making a lot of noise for pain patients. Write to your governors, to your congressmen, to your senators, and contact your local departments of health. Ask to speak to your drug systems directors and tell them how these regulations are impacting your life and your family and your quality of life. We have to speak out in order to be heard. And that's why I'm vlogging about this. And those are the efforts that we've put forth so far. I hope that others will join us and keep up the fight, because this is a fight that we all have a stake in. Thank you for joining me. Talk to you soon.